Israeli soldiers were killed today, 8 Israeli civilians.
But some young Americans are there in the middle of this conflict in the Middle East. Let's go straight to Fox.
At the age of 19, Michael Levin left the comforts of suburban Philadelphia to follow his dream. He joined the IDF, becoming what Israelis call a lone soldier.
Tuesday, he was killed in action at Ait al-Shab, one of the fiercest battles troops faced in South Lebanon since the war began 3 weeks ago.
Dearest Harriet, Mark, Elise, and Dara, I write this letter to salute the parents and sisters of the greatest hero I've ever known, Michael Levin, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. I hope and pray that in these days of sorrow, you are beginning to find comfort in the knowledge that so many hundreds of thousands of people admire and look up to your son and brother Michael as the great Jewish hero he was.
To many people, Michael was a role model and a hero. But to us, to our family, he was just our Michael. On February 17th, 1984, we were not only blessed, we were doubly blessed with the birth of Michael and Dara. We now had a beautiful family with Elisa, their older sister, and we had a wonderful family life here, and we considered ourselves very, very fortunate. We were a very close-knit family. We loved each other very much.
It's a rarity that you find a picture of him where he's not having fun and he's not smiling.
Where was I before the day that I am?
People always ask me, where did Michael get this devotion, this love of Israel that he possessed? I think a great deal of it came from my parents, Celia and Lilik Solarski. They're both Holocaust survivors, and it had a tremendous impact on him. Hearing stories from my father and about my father, I think contributed to Michael's desire to defend the land of Israel for us, for all future generations of Jews, to have a homeland. I think one of the biggest influences for Michael was when he started to attend Camp Lama, that it showed you that you could be a person into sports, like all the contemporary things the kids like, but Jewishly, and live a Jewish life. In high school, Michael went to Israel with several of his friends from Council Rock High School, and I really think that that was the changing point for Michael. He learned with Yossi Katz, which was the best of teachers. He was in love with the land, he was in love with the people. It was an experience of a lifetime for Michael. It changed his life forever. He came home from the end of the Nativ program. He went to New York, took care of his papers, came back home and said, my papers are done, I'm making Aliyah to Israel, I'm leaving.
Because Michael was physically small in size, many people made the mistake of underestimating him, and that was a big mistake. For Michael was very, very creative and resourceful and determined. I remember the story he told me about how he gained admission into the Army. He had been waiting weeks, even months, for his admission papers, which never came. So he decided to take matters into his own hands, went down to the admissions building, tried to gain entrance through the front door. He was stopped by 2 armed guards, said to him, papers. He said, I have no papers, that's why I'm here. They said, papers. He said, I don't have any. I need to get in to get papers. And they said, get away. And he left and realized that he'd have to be a little bit more creative to make this happen. So he walked around the back of the building, noticing that all the windows and doors were barred completely with bars top to bottom. He looked up at the second floor and saw a window open about 3 or 4 inches. So, being at the back of the building, he found a dumpster that he pushed across the way against the building. He climbed on the dumpster, climbed up the bars of the first floor window, pushed the window open, tumbled into the men's room on the second floor of the building, picked himself up, brushed himself off, walked outside, walked downstairs, found the appropriate office, walked in. The man says, next. Michael sits down. He says, papers. Michael says, I don't have any papers. He says, son, you can't get through the front door of this building unless you have papers. Michael said, what makes you think I came through the front door? And he told him the story of how he got in. And the man said to him, you know, I've been here about 20 years, and all too often young men try to find a way of getting out of the Army. He says, you're the first person to actually break into this building to get into the Army. He says, sit down, we'll fill out your papers.
After he walked 90 kilometers to get the red hat, on his back 40 kilo, and he is smiling. I say to myself, what's going on here? Only 90 kilometers, it's nothing, Tzvika. If you believe, it's okay. If you don't believe, it will be very hard. And I believe, that's why it's not so hard for me.
The first jump that they did, Michael weighing 118 pounds, was so light he totally drifted off course. So his second jump, they put weights on him, and he came down with a really hard thud. But, I mean, he was a lightweight. He used to call me and say, Ma, these guys are ripped. He says, I'm like nothing next to them.
When we got our Red Berets together at Ammunition Hill, it's just, there's so much history of Israel, history of the Jewish people in Israel proper. And, you know, when you finish that 90-kilometer march and you finally get that Red Beret and you're standing on the, you know, on the same spot where the paratroopers fought so hard and lost so many, and it just kind of really ties in the feeling of, wow, this is our land. This is essentially, this belongs to us. This is our right as Jews to be here and to defend this land and have our people live in it.
Michael became very close friends with Gilad, who was his mifaked, commander, when he was in basic training. There was an incredible bond between the two of them.
Right.
When Michael was inducted into the Israeli army, Mark and I flew over to be there for him, and I think that that was one of the proudest moments in his entire life.
It's a dream come true, something I've wondered since I was a little kid. It's something no words could describe what it means to me.
He's a good one. I saw him training.
I know.
He's working very, very hard, and I'm proud of him.
From the time he was a little boy, he always said he was going to go to Israel and he wanted to fight in the army. And everybody said, when he grows up, he'll change his mind. And I said, no, he won't. And that was his dream, always.
I think God gave him this Zionist neshama.
כל פעם שדיברתי איתו, ראיתי כמה אש יש לו בעיניים כשהוא מדבר על שירות ועל המדינה וכמה זה חשוב וכמה שהוא יודע שאם הוא לא יהיה זה שיהיה כאן, אז לא יהיה מי שיהיה במקומו.
That's the truth, man. No pain, no gain. You don't take the pain, you're not going to go into the best units.
No pain, no gain, Tzvika. This sentence, I will never forget it.
The last time Michael came home was for one of our closest friends' daughter's wedding. It was a great visit. I took him to a Broadway show. Mark took him to a Phillies game. And he told his friends when we went back to Israel, he said this was his best visit home. Then everything started in Israel, and he couldn't wait to get back. And he really felt that's where he belonged, and he didn't want to be here anymore.
Michael would see these news reports, and he had to get back. He had to fight with his friends and his unit.
The killing and capture of Israeli soldiers that prompted this war affected Michael deeply. It was as if they had taken his best friends, Benji, Shlomi, or Gilad. To him, there was no difference.
This is probably the last picture of Michael. It was about 2 hours probably before we went in. Well, I remember when we got on the bus before we went in, and actually I asked somebody that was religious if I could borrow his kippah to say Shema Yisrael, and Michael just took his kippah off his head. He said, "Here, take mine." I looked at his kippah, and this thing's huge, it's bigger than his head, and put it on, said Shema Yisrael. He looked at me and said, "All right, you ready now?" I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." I gave it back to him, put it on his head.
במהלך התנועה של הכוח של מייקל הם נתקלו ממספר מוקדים, גם ממבנים וגם משטח פתוח. הכוח שלו נלחם ותפס מבנה, נערך בו להגנה, ובמהלך ההיערכות להגנה, לצערנו הרב, צרור של מחבל שנורה מחוץ למבנה, חדר פנימה דרך אחד הפתחים, פגע במייקל ופצע עוד שני לוחמים שהיו ממש סמוכים אליו. לאחר שהכוח הגיע לבית של מייקל וטיפל בפצועים וטיפל במוקדי הירי, הכוח חילץ את המחלקה של מייקל, כולל את גופתו של מייקל, והביא אותה לבית של אחת מהמחלקות שהייתה בסמוך. באותו לילה, כוח מפלוגה אחרת הוציא את כל הפצועים ואת מייקל החוצה לישראל.
אמרתי לעצמי, נפל בחלקי לפנות הרוג, אז אני אתן את הכבוד האחרון, ואני אסחב את האלונקה הזאת. ולקחתי את הקשר שלי, אחד המ"כים שלי, מפקדים, ועוד חייל, 4 אנשים מתחת לאלונקה של ההרוג, ואמרתי, אני לא יוצא מכאן. לא יוצא, אני, מהרגע הראשון עד הרגע האחרון, אולי זה היה איזו הרגשה או לא יודע מה. אני עושה את זה עד הסוף. עושה את הכבוד האחרון לבחור שאני לא יודע את מי אני סוחב. בסוף המפקד שלי החליט שאנחנו צריכים לסגת, להגיע לגבול, והמשכנו ללכת תחת אש, גם הליכה לא פשוטה, ובסוף עברנו את הגבול, והפצועים פונו והכל בסדר, כולם רגועים. כולם שמחים שעשו את המשימה כמו שצריך, הם פצועים מעבר. ואז יש מין עלייה כזאת, היא גבוהה מאוד, בעלייה לתוך המוצב אחרי הגבול. ניגש אליי אחד המ"כים ואומר לי, שסחב איתי את האלונקה, אומר לי, גלעד, בוא'נה, האלונקה הזאת הייתה, מה זה קלה? ההרוג לא שקל כלום, ממש כלום. אומר לו, כן, היה באמת יחסית פשוט. ואז הוא אומר לי, המייקל הזה היה כל כך רזה. ואז אמרתי, מה? מי אמרת? אומר לי, מייקל, מה, לא ידעת שאתה סוחב את מייקל? באותו רגע אני הייתי עמום לגמרי. פשוט לא ידעתי מה להגיד. אמרתי לו, אתה רציני? זה מייקל. הוא היה חייל שלי, אתה יודע. אני לא יכולתי לעצור כמו שקשה לי עכשיו. התחלתי שם לדמוע ולקחו אותי ככה הצידה. והבנתי שסחבתי את מייקל כל הלילה. היה קשה לתפוס מה הלך שם. קשה מאוד.
Every mother wants to keep her child close to her. Michael had told me before he went back to Israel that if anything should happen, that he wanted to be buried in Har Herzl, the equivalent of our Arlington. And it was a difficult decision, but not for very long. How could we not honor his last wishes? And that's where he belonged. That's where his heart and soul was. That was home to Michael. That had to be his final resting place. This kippah, knowing that this is what Michael wore into battle when he fell, this is like having a part of Michael and holding him.
The day before Michael died, Michael gave me a phone call. I did not get to listen to it until the morning after he died, and I would like to share that message with you.
First, save voice message.
Hey there, what's up? It's your brother. Anyways, I'm just calling because I'm in the middle of a war, and it's crazy as hell, and I just wanted to let you know that I do love you, and if that's the thing that should happen to me, that that I love you and miss you, and I wish you all the best, and so that's really it. So I love you, miss you, I wish you all the best, and I'll talk to you hopefully again soon. Bye.
End of message. This message.
Up to the cemetery, my first reaction was that of disappointment, because I saw hundreds and hundreds of people outside the cemetery, and cars and taxis everywhere. And my very first thought was, great, there must be 5, 10, who knows how many, 15 funerals going on at one time. It's going to be crazy in there. Little did we know that everyone that was there for Michael. The crowd was huge. Could have been in the thousands. That there were trucks mounted with loudspeakers that went through the streets of Jerusalem that day, saying that a holy man from America, a soldier in the IDF, had fallen in battle and was being buried that day. And people came from all over the country. Secular, Reformed, Orthodox, Black Hatters. It was a fast day in Israel for the religious to Shabbat. People walked for hours and hours, fasted all day, and walked halfway across the city just to be there. For some reason, Michael's story, the ideals that he stood for, his sacrifice, captured the hearts and the minds of people all over the country. And they all wanted to be there for us that day.
I remember after we came back from the funeral, and we went back to the base, and we were going through all of our equipment to make sure what's missing and what we need to make up, and cartridges and grenades. And we were going through Michael's vest, and we opened one of his side pockets, and in there was an Israeli flag. And we all looked at each other, and it's unbelievable. And it's no more Zionism than that. I got shivers through my spine.
Michael was a religious Zionist who believed in the promise of the prophets. He also believed that the history of world Jewry would be played out in Israel, not the United States, and he wanted to be a part of it all. But most important, he felt that Israel needed to be defended against the radical terrorists that threatened its destruction. That's why he never considered it a duty or an obligation to serve in the IDF, but an honor to defend his beloved Israel. Harry and I decided that we had to do something to help preserve his memory, the ideals that he stood for, and the sacrifice that he made. We decided to start the Michael Levin Memorial Fund for Israel, a fund that would help other lone soldiers like him, help them to make their lives a little bit easier, to contribute in any way we could, emotionally, spiritually, materialistically. They've gone to a country where they have no real support system, and this fund will go a long way in making that difficult transition for them just a little bit easier.
One of Michael's greatest heroes and one of the biggest inspirations in his life was Yonatan Netanyahu. Yoni Netanyahu was the leader of the raid on Entebbe in 1976, and he was the only soldier from Israel who died leading that raid. And I think that Michael gained a lot of inspiration and pride from Yoni Netanyahu for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel.
Michael may have only lived 22 years, but in his 22 years he did more than most of us accomplish in an entire lifetime. Michael always said he was doing exactly what he wanted to do, and he was exactly where he wanted to be. There were no regrets. The best way to honor our son's memory is to learn about what he lived for, not how he died, what his beliefs were. Go to Israel. Take the time to learn about history, Jewish history, about Israel, about Jewish heroes, about your own background. Doing things like this will honor our son's memory.
One of the great Zionist poets was Shaul Chernyakhovsky, whose poetry has touched so many with his passion and love of Israel. And in one of the poems, Omrim Yeshna Eretz, they say that there is a land. There are a couple of lines that touch me because I believe that they were talking about Michael. The poem says in the middle here, Shalom Lacha Akiva, Shalom Lacha Rabbi, Efo Hem HaKdoshim, Efo HaMakabi, Onelo Akiva, Onelo Arabi, Kol Yisrael Kdoshim, Ata HaMakabi. These are words that really talking about Michael. Know about Jewish history was made by people like Michael, who gave their heart and soul for Israel. And Michael wanted to be a Maccabee, and in the end, he died becoming that hero.